So this year, as we gather for our holidays, our hearts are again heavy. The world outside these walls has not been easy for us, for the Jewish community, for our community. Again, we saw in this last year entire parts of our city disappear. There's a war that's been raging now for nearly 2 years in Israel, and the hostages have been held for 718 days as of today. Nearly 2 years in captivity. And needless to say, the Jewish people have been suffering in ways that we never thought we would. Things we never thought we'd see in our lifetimes. Last year at this time, we had been in the shadow of October 7th for about a year, and we had seen unprecedented waves of anti-Semitism, especially on colleges. Columbia University was one of the worst situations in New York City, right? In a city that has a few Jewish people living there. In April of 2024, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services found that the university had violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act for deliberate indifference toward harassment of Jewish students since October 7, 2023. And that was the Biden administration that came to that conclusion. But this year we saw violence move in deadly ways outside of the campus. In the last year, in Washington, D.C., 2 Israeli diplomats, Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, were murdered in May during what should have been a night of young people celebrating culture and friendship in D.C. And then a month later in Boulder, Colorado, a solidarity walk for Israeli hostages was firebombed, killing Karen Diamond, who was 82. Literally less than 20 miles as the crow flies from where we're sitting right now. As you remember, just after October 7th, Paul Kessler was killed in Thousand Oaks at the corner of Westlake and Thousand Oaks. The trial hasn't started. It's going to start next month, hopefully. It might be delayed again, but October 20th is when the trial's supposed to start. And, the situations that we've found ourselves in as American Jews, the ways that we've been victimized and some of us attacked, and some strange things. I mean, we posted about Jewish Community Day a couple weeks ago on our Facebook page for the temple, and we boosted it. And some of you saw what happened. Jewish Community Day with the Chargers on October 19th turned into an opportunity for people to go nuts on Israel and the Jewish community. It was an open invitation for people to post horrible stuff. And some of you saw it because I had to go on about every 2 hours to pull out. There were 140 comments on our post. 135 of them were disgusting. 135 out of 140 posts. I grew up understanding that this kind of hate was out there. I kind of took it for granted. I never had a lot directed at me as a kid growing up. I went to a Jewish day school. I didn't have horrible situations that went on, but I could say this, that as a kid, because of my dad's work, because of my dad being an activist and a well-known Jewish leader, we had incidents in our home. We had a huge swastika spray painted on our garage when I was a kid. We had our grass burned And then we just, assumed these were white supremacists who found out where we lived. One time, I was not in the car, but my dad's window got shot out in the 80s. And so I grew up knowing that this could happen, that there were people who hated out there, but I did not expect that we'd live through the times that we do. I didn't expect that what my dad lived through and then what kind of was visited on us because of his role would get worse. And so I want to just tell you, Dina, who's sitting here in the front row, and Jack, this summer. Dina, as a lot of you know, was in Israel, and Jack accompanied her. They were on a birthright trip. It was Jack's first time in Israel. And Zach was there. The Schoenwetters are back there. Zach was in Israel on a different Taglit trip at the same time. Nina Nathan was there from our community. This was should have been a wonderful trip, and of course, Iran attacked Israel, and so these kids ended up being in harm's way, and they had to be eventually evacuated. They were evacuated through Cyprus and made their way home, and they were safe, and I would say we were not really frightened, but we understood that it was a dangerous situation. But that's not the end of the story, because Dina, who is a wonderful elementary school teacher, has a job in school in Chula Vista, teaching elementary kids, works real hard. She also is a cycle bar instructor. She's a spin teacher too. When she's not teaching, before class and after class, she teaches spin in Hillcrest, San Diego area. And so she's been doing that for a couple years. And what happened this summer, after she got back from Israel, is somebody went on to the Cycle Bar Instagram page and started posting that if you go to Cycle Bar and take a class with Dina Blazer, you're supporting genocide. So somebody took the time to find out, to do a social media scrub of, find out about her and then post that. Now, fortunately, her work took the post down and told her there's not a problem. But again, because she had gone to Israel, that's what happened. And, Dina had, when she was at school at UCSD, took part in BLM stuff. She has cared about people her whole life who are not necessarily from her people. And she learned, unfortunately, that we live in a time that, again, I can't believe it's getting worse for her. So this world that we inhabit is not quite what we expected. But I want to tell you, that's only part of the story. Because the other part of the story, the other side of the story, is not what you expect. Because something remarkable has happened over the last 2 years that we also never expected. And that is something that Jewish leaders have now dubbed the surge. And what is the surge? Well, Jewish Federations of North America found that at its peak, since October 7th, 43% of American Jews have reported increased involvement in Jewish life. And even as time passed after October 7th, in this year, in 2025, 31% of American Jews are still reporting greater engagement in Jewish life. And this surge is across all ages, all levels of prior observance, from highly affiliated synagogue members to secular Jews who felt a call to show up for their people. These are not statistics. This is a spiritual earthquake. Higher synagogue attendance. There are more people here this year than there were last year. There are prayer services for Israel and these things like they had in Boulder. They never had a weekly march for Israel. They didn't have to. They never had one. There's more people attending adult education, Jewish book clubs, Hebrew classes, and cultural events. There's been a larger turnout for rallies, for marches, for vigils. We're going to have one for October 7th, Sunday, October 5th, because we couldn't do it on the 7th. It's Chag, it's Sukkot, so we're going to be doing it on October 5th across the whole of Santa Clarita. We had an amazing Israel rally back in February, a celebration of Israel, not about October 7th, but about the vitality of what's going on every day in Israel. And we're going to have another it's going to be a Jewish cultural festival, under the same auspices, done by volunteers, and it'll be in this February as well. That's what's happening. We went to Israel back in January, February. There's a few people sitting out here right now who were on that trip. John Stolman, Philip Wasserman. I don't think anybody else who was on that trip is here right now, but they went with us, and we went. You remember last year at High Holidays, we raised money and supplies for the Shuva Achim, for the Shuva brothers? Well, we brought that stuff to them, and it was amazing. And we did that, and there are synagogues around the country that are doing things like that right now. There's more people lighting Shabbat candles, wearing Jewish symbols. People started putting on a Magen David, a Star of David. And students at college campuses have increased their involvement in Hillel and Chabad. There are more people going to those organizations on their college campuses now than before October 7th. And people are seeing this outside of the Jewish community, and I'll tell you how I know that. Because we've seen an amazing thing happen over the last 2 years. We are seeing a dynamic increase in the amount of people that are converting to Judaism. There was an interesting article back in December in the New Yorker covering an individual, Jeannie Suk, who has been a part of the Jewish community for a long time, Korean American, who decided to finally go through conversion. And she talked about her own journey and interviewed people in New York and Boston about what's going on. And I can tell you, this isn't anecdotal. This has been something that people have noticed all across the country. Dean's boyfriend, Jack, who's sitting here in the front row, took the class at AJU, the Miller course at AJU, and there were so many students that were enrolled in the Miller course that they had to add another course. They had to split it into 2 different groups. And Jack, who went to Israel after celebrating and going through the mikveh in November, when he went in June to Israel, he said, you can talk to him, he'll tell you, that when he was there in Israel, dealing with this barrage of rockets, that he was never more proud of the decision that he made. That really happened. Again, and it's happening across the country. And these sparks, this energy of Jewish Renaissance is happening on a daily basis in something, again, that has been called the surge. Now, this is being talked about a lot in the Jewish establishment because no one really expected this to happen. We didn't really know what would happen. But it's happening, and it's happening with you being here right now. The Jewish people, that means each one of you, has said, Hineni, here I am. I'm present, just like Abraham. Accounted for, ready to take responsibility for one another and for our future. Now, none of us wished for this moment to come this way. This is a nightmare that no one expected, no one wanted. But our history teaches us that Jewish vitality arises from adversity. Our tradition teaches us that every dark moment contains within it the seeds for renewal. Next week, the Haftarah for Yom Kippur tells us, in the book of Isaiah, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. The surge is precisely that. People walking through the shadow and discovering light. And a people carrying each other when the weight feels too heavy to bear. It's what I talked about last night, to be together in this moment. And that, my friends, is what Jewish history is about. Carrying each other through the dark times and finding something on the other side that is unbelievable. After our slavery in Egypt came the first Jewish nation, the Temple of Solomon. After the destruction of the temple, the exile to Babylon, we came back and we edited together the greatest work of all time, the Bible. That came out of the Babylonian experience. And when the second temple was destroyed, that was the birth of what we call now Rabbinic Judaism, but it's the Judaism that we see expressed in the Talmud and the Midrash. It's the way that we continue to live when we didn't have a country. And then, about 2,000 years later, after the Shoah, after the Holocaust, was the rebirth of Israel and the expansion at the same time of a golden age of American Jewish life. And now, after October 7th, there is something remarkable happening. This surge of Jews rediscovering their faith, identity, and their belonging. Now, how long this lasts, what this will mean for the future, it's too early to say. What do we do with this? Will it fade as the headlines change? Because they will change. Or will it be a transformative experience that will create a lasting renewal of Jewish life? Well, folks, that is up to us. Because we can transform this moment into meaningful renewal, something that changes history. And it depends on us. There's no magic, there's no secret. It will be the combined energy of everyone, every one of us. And we can do it and make this time a time of light. A couple things. We can deepen our practice. If we're doing something like coming to synagogue for holidays, come for another holiday, come for Shabbat. Take up a greater connection. When we repeat those little things that we do, it changes our lives because we're doing something repeatedly. It becomes a discipline. It becomes part of who we are. And I will tell you that if you celebrate Shabbat by maybe coming to synagogue or maybe lighting Shabbat candles, try disconnecting on Shabbat. Try turning off your phone for half the day. Try tuning out the noise that is driving us nuts for 6 hours, and maybe then you can increase it to 10 hours. But try on Shabbat to unplug. Those kind of things, again, deepening our practices but strengthening ourselves on an individual level. And then we take it another step. We strengthen our community. We make sure that we're connecting with others. Now, there are a lot of opportunities at our synagogue. There's a lot of opportunities in the Jewish community. We have a lot of stuff that's coming up. And I mentioned last night that this moment will survive and will grow and will thrive if we do it together. And the last piece I'm going to tell you is a tough one because in a moment we're going to ask you to do that, and that is that it is going to take an investment. We have to support the education that's going on in our synagogue, that's going on in the Jewish community, to support the ability to bring in musicians and to bring in people to help bring our connection, make our connection stronger. And we are doing that, and we're going to continue to do that in our community. And I hope other communities, I'm sure they'll do it. Because investing in this moment right now, is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. We didn't ask for this moment. It was thrust upon us. But this is the time to invest. This is the time to buy into the Jewish community, to lay the foundation for generations. And here, again, specifically at our temple, we're creating very fertile ground. Our community is the manure. No, that's not a good word. It's the rich soil where this is going to take place. And it's taking place, because I want to tell you, this is what we've done since Labor Day. Right? This is the last 3 weeks. We had an amazing Beatles Shabbat. I'm looking at you, Rich. And Wendy, who's back there. And Chris. I don't know if Chris is here right now. Chris is again, at home right now. Unfortunately, his father-in-law, Don, we laid him to rest. But Rich was jamming on the guitar in our sanctuary, along with Wendy and Rich. Chris was a big part of that, too. And we want to thank Duffy and Art, who was there, too. Did I leave someone out, Rich? I think I got everybody. The Beatles Shabbat was amazing. We had almost as many people as are here now. We're at our synagogue. I'm not kidding. Then we had, a couple of days later, we had the first day of religious school, which came out to an amazing start. We had a phenomenal start to our religious school. Just last week, we made sandwiches for Bridge to Home. All of our kids, from the earliest ones on, made sandwiches for our shelter. It was amazing. And then a couple days later, we had a special screening of Guns N' Moses with my friends Sal and Nina came out. I wasn't even there, and we still were able to do it because Aaron was there helping out to make sure that we could have this screening. And we had a screening at the Regal for that movie. We had the women's retreat right after that. And we had an amazing women's retreat. There was no room for anybody else. There was no room even for the people that were there. But no, we wanted to make sure that all the women who could participate, who wanted to participate, had a chance. And that was a wonderful weekend. People really, really appreciated that. And a lot of people worked hard, including my wife. She worked pretty hard. And a couple days after that, we had an amazing speaker, Dor Shachar, who came on Tuesday night. Oh my gosh, that was like just a couple days ago. It was a week ago. Dor came and he told his story of how he grew up in Khan Yunis as a Palestinian living in Khan Yunis and made the journey a couple of miles to where he lives today in Rishon LeZion in Israel. And the journey of a couple miles, it was a journey of a whole different identity. A guy who went from being a Palestinian Arab who was raised to hate Jews to being a Jew. It's an unbelievable story. It's up on our YouTube channel if you want to hear the story. It's tough because he had a translator. He lives in Israel. He was just out here for a few days. And Dor is a great guy. I got to spend some time with him this past weekend. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he told his story. And then we had a special Shabbat with Rick and Addie where we did some of the melodies that we're doing tonight. And we had our classes over the last couple of weeks. Our Tuesday morning class at 9, our Wednesday evening class, the Jewish Journey that just started. This is an intro to Judaism, an overview of Judaism every Wednesday night. And our Torah study on Tuesday mornings where we're finishing the last books of the Bible that some people never have a chance to study. We had our book club meet last week. And then just this past week, we opened up a preschool. We did that. Play Place is now part of Temple Beth Ami. And I even see one of our parents in the back there. So this is an amazing, that's 3 weeks. That was done in 3 weeks. This is not business as usual, folks. And it's not the month of September, because coming up, we've got the October Memorial, which I'm going to say October 5th at City Hall at 6 p.m. We're going to gather to remember the murders of October 7th, 2023, and we're going to pray for the release. Please, maybe even by then it will have happened, the release of the hostages who are still alive. Some of them are still alive, folks. So that's going to be October 5th, and the mayor, Bill Miranda, I spoke to him a couple days ago, he's going to be there, 6 p.m., right in front of City Hall. And then a couple of weeks later, on the 19th, we're going to have Jewish Community Day at the Chargers, thanks to Daniel Brodslavsky. Where's Daniel? Daniel still here? There he is back there. Daniel works for the Chargers, and he said, we'll make it happen, and he did. We have Jewish Community Day. As I mentioned last night, it appears that the Dodgers are not going to have it, unless they're having it during the playoffs, which I don't think they're doing it. Maybe that would be a great thing. It's not happening. They are not having a Jewish Community Day, but the Chargers are. And I wanted to blast that everywhere, and the Chargers would not let me do that. They were saying, no, we don't want to cause bad blood in Los Angeles, but the Chargers are having Jewish Community Day. A lot of you already have tickets. Raise your hand if you already have tickets to the Charger game. Raise your hand. And a lot of you don't have tickets yet. Folks, they're 3-0. What more do they have to do? They're playing. When they gave us this day, they gave us the Colts. The Colts, folks. We thought that was a game that no one would want to see. Guess what? The Colts are also 3-0. Go see a great game. Well, we'll see what happens by October 19th. But it's potentially 2 playoff teams, folks. It's amazing. And we want to thank Daniel for making that happen. We'll be here before you know it. And then the next month, and I will tell you, if you want to go, I talked to Israel about it 3 days ago. They will take people until 2 days before, they said, we're going to be going to Israel in November with Joe Buchanan. And Joe is very excited about going on this trip. It's his second trip to Israel. Israel Hayom did an amazing piece about his story and about his trip to Israel with us. And that's going to be the middle of November. That's November 10th, we depart. Some of you are already going. Some of you are already signed up. If you made a decision today that you want to come, you can go. And you'll be able to be in Israel with us. And God willing, by then, to have some stuff to celebrate. But no matter what, we're going to be strengthening the people of Israel by being there. And they really appreciate it. Trust me. They appreciate us just even talking about going there right now. And I will tell you in this next year, we're going to continue our classes. We have our book club. We have the Jewish Action Committee that I mentioned. They are the ones who sponsored Door Coming Out. That was organized by Ariella, she did the Jewish Action Committee. She said, I want to do the Jewish Action Committee, and sure enough, it's happened. It's not only happening, we had almost a full house last week for Doors Talk, and the next Jewish Action Committee is going to be meeting on the 21st of October. We have our Jewish Festival that, again, Ariella is working on as well in the committee for February. And we're not just going to have a Beatles Shabbat this coming year. We're going to have some other musical Shabbats. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but Rich and Wendy are working on that. We're going to have something. Don't look around, Rich. You know you're going to. You already committed to it. So we're going to be bringing those programs and continuing them, but we're also reintroducing and reinventing some stuff that we haven't had in a while, including, as I mentioned, our preschool. This preschool that we're hosting now is an amazing program. The Play Place program that Wendy has brought to our synagogue is an amazing preschool that opened immediately with 15 students already enrolled. And she came over from the school that was up in Castaic that she had started, that was part of SCVI. So her preschool already has an amazing reputation, has been around for quite a few years before, again, now finding its new home with us. And that's going to lead to a Mommy and Me program. We're going to continue serving the youngest in our community, and we're also going to, again, do some stuff that we haven't done in a few years. We're going to go back to Eastern and Central Europe. We're going to do our trip in June. You'll get the information's going out on that soon. We know we're doing it in June, and we already know the stops. And it's just literally a matter of days. We're going to, maybe even by Yom Kippur, we'll be able to announce what that itinerary looks like. We went to Europe 11 years ago. Those countries like Poland and Germany and Hungary. And you know what's wonderful about going to those countries right now? They're about the only countries left in Europe that I'd even spend money in. So I'm encouraging everybody to go visit those countries, and we're putting this trip together so you can go on that trip. And some of you went on that trip 11 years ago, and it was amazing. The Stolmans were there, the Stolnitzes were there. Who else is there here? What was on that trip? The Bartons were here, the Van Winkels, the Cogans. It was an amazing trip, and we're going to do it again in 2026. Between now and next high holidays, we're going to go to those places. They're difficult places to see, but there are also wonderful things going on in Europe right now. And again, those countries of Poland, Germany, and Hungary, they have stood with Israel. And there's a wonderful message from the Hungarian ambassador to the U.S. that we just posted on the JLTV site. Wonderful, wonderful support that Hungary is still giving. And again, Germany and Poland, places that our families came from. So you get the idea, folks. There's a lot of potential, a lot of opportunities, but there's things that we don't even know that are going to. We don't know what's going to happen because you haven't brought them to us. When you bring us ideas, our board, our group of leaders has always been open to hearing new potential, new ideas, new things. Our Tot Shabbat started because there were some really wonderful women who said, we want to have a Tot Shabbat. And we did. Our Tuesday class started because we had people who said, I can't come to Wednesday night. Can we do a class on Tuesday? And we did. We need your insights and we need your energy, and that's what I'm asking for you to do this year. Because our children and our grandchildren can ask us, what did the Jews of Santa Clarita do in 2025? In this time of trial? Look, we cannot stop individually hatred, but we can determine our response. We can let the fear silence us, or we can come together like never before. We can shrink back, or we can rise up. And so this year, let each of us say, Hineni, here I am. Present, accounted for, ready to carry, whether to do what we need to do, together in strength and courage and with light. Kenny Hiratzon, may this be God's will. May it be your will. We say together, Amen.